Second Watch.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the
Hello.
Second Watch. We got DM Cloaker joining us again tonight. We're not going to talk about modern games, but we are going to talk about settings and whether it matters because it kind of dovetails, or systems, excuse me. Whether or not it matters, I don't know. That's something kind of came up in conversation this week with one of our viewers, Mike. I want to give a quick shout out. Thanks for the idea, man. But before we get into that, we do have our usual news. So I wanted to do a quick shout out for VentureCon. Sandy Peterson is a guest of honor. It's $100. Weekend of July 18th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Madison, Wisconsin. Tickets are still available. It's a good time. I'll be there, as will Sandy Peterson. So, and I know he's running Call of Cthulhu game, and he's doing a couple seminars on horror gaming. I also wanted to bring up Hex Flowers, not to talk about excessively, but I did bring them up last time, and I couldn't remember the guy's name, so I did my homework. Goblin Henchman, go to DriveThruRPG, look it up. He's got something called the Hex Flower Cookbook. It's really interesting. I think it's pay what you want. I threw him like $350, something like that. So, and then these two pieces of news might be somewhat related in a broad sort of way. Shadow Dark's latest Kickstarter ended at $2.4 million. And Jeremy Crawford's out at Wizards of the Coast.
They're all
I just sort of think it's not.
They're all gone.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, it's like Sign of
All right.
the Times or something.
So, oh man. All right, Brian, you go first. I got to collect myself with my thoughts about this.
Because of the West Marches? All right, are you in purgatory?
No. I'm kind of stuck on everybody bailing out of WotC right now.
Well, I mean, from all of our different viewpoints, whenever we've seen shifts in editions and creatives, but this feels probably a bit more corporate. Like there's probably some fallout or maybe some muted disappointment at how 5e24 really landed with a thud and not a revitalization. Because remember 3.5, when 3.5 hit, there was excitement. There was a lot of people that were voracious.
Mm-hmm.
There was
certainly at my tables back then.
Yeah,
there was 21 years ago. 21 was that 2003? I guess maybe feels like that. So,
well, there's absolutely no excitement for the new edition of D&D, but I don't trust that they really care that much about the quality of the game for it to matter. I don't even know if it's sales as much as their development team. And I think Dungeons and Dragons in its corporate thing, it's being treated like Monopoly, right? Like it's always going to fucking be this way. And I don't think you're going to have developers.
Right.
I think you're designers. I think you're going to have people who maintain the game, who just kind of keep it together and think of new shit to sell online.
Well, the names that are left in terms of designers and creators all indicate that they're basically fluff and lore. I mean, Schneider and Wyatt. I mean, they all have some nominal adventure design stuff, but most of it is. I mean, I hate to say it, but I wouldn't be surprised. Mackenzie DeArmas is probably good. There's a lot of identity, right? There's a lot of identity, a lot of buzzwords, and a lot of just. It might be not the death knell or the end, but it's not the end of the game. It's just the end of an era, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I don't want to make this the entire conversation
What's
for
up,
tonight,
Chubby?
but real quick, the 13th Texan, thanks for joining us, man. I know he's over on Rumble too. While I'm on that subject, because I was reminded that I don't say this enough. Hey, hit like, subscribe, follow if you're on Rumble. Rumble actually is a little bit more generous, and that would certainly
Right
help
now
us
they
out a
ain't
lot.
giving us
So I
shit.
appreciate it.
No. So like and subscribe, motherfuckers.
Yeah. What's up, Bingo Man Zero? And of course, Chubby Funster. Dude, we're going to have you on in a couple weeks. We
Please,
got to figure out when's a
please.
good date. We'd love to have you on. But going back to the Crawford thing, yeah, I do think it's an end of the era. And Tenkar actually made an interesting point earlier today, like maybe 2 hours ago on his stream. He thinks that in like a couple of years, what they'll do is they'll license out the RPG to somebody. But they're not going to get rid of the whole thing because the whole lifestyle brand is a cash cow for Hasbro and all
makes
that.
sense to have lore experts,
They,
right? If you're going to maintain still some connectivity with the rich whatever history of all those things are proprietary, it makes sense to have most of your designers and creators be a lot of the
All they're gonna do. Listen, the game is. I don't want to say that the game is dead necessarily, but the game is definitely not the focus anymore, right? So they're going to license it out because they don't want to pay people. They don't want to deal with shit. They don't want to develop any more bullshit software that they throw away without ever really using. You know, I mean, they're done with that. They're done. We Dungeons and Dragons is being guided by businessmen who don't understand, which is look, it's a fucking business. These things happen, right? But the fact is there's a culture that they're ignoring. There's a history that they're ignoring. They're also ignoring the fact that regardless of how much fucking 5e sold during a goddamn pandemic, this is a niche hobby. You know, it's not, you know, you have to accept it for what it is and what the sales are. They're never going to do that. So their best option is to license it out. Our best hope is that they license it to somebody who's got half a brain, you know.
I think it'll be very finite though, don't you think? Because of all the money they put into D&D Beyond, if they're going to subcontract it out, they're going to have to give whoever these, you know,
I don't
hire access to all of that, and
fine.
I think it'll be very light development.
I mean,
Kelsey was probably spot on. We're 5 years away, maybe from 6.
I do think they're going to eventually take an about turn. I would not be surprised if they farmed it out. I think that financially that'd be the best option for them. I could be wrong because I don't think they give a shit about the tabletop game. I think they give a shit about the patches and the stickers and the books and the movies and yeah,
and the Funko Pops
and all that little bullshit because that's what makes them money.
The plushies.
Right? That's what makes them money. So it's the game is whatever at this point. Their best bet would to, if they really wanted to endear some sort of fan love, just license it out to a good company and announce prints or reproductions of a bunch of old products just for fun, you know, something like that, just to be like, hey guys, we love you, here you go. They don't give a fuck, dude.
It'll be like probably surface water kind of troughing for a limited time, but when the Netflix series lands, I would not be surprised to see a revitalization. It might be a bit different, but that's going to be a really big deal.
I want it to be good. I want Dungeons and Dragons to be good. I just don't have much hope for it right now. You know what I mean? So, okay, Matthew, moving on. Sorry.
Oh yeah. No.
We're going.
No, I just there was like a little bit of a slowdown on my end, so like everyone froze, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Hey, let's go!" All right.
No.
All right. So we have been talking ad nauseum for the past couple of weeks about modern games and how to set up a modern campaign, and one of our viewers, Mike. Who I don't think is here right at the moment, but he reached out and actually asked the question about systems and whether system matters when designing a campaign, when setting up a campaign, when getting ready to run a game. And he brought this up in the context of a conversation he ended up getting into on one of these Facebook groups where he's like, hey, you know, what do you guys do when you're playing such and such game, but you want to make it more investigative horror or something? Like, what kind of the system really even matter at that point? Like, what kind of house rules? And the response he got was sort of like this. How do you want to say it? Like inartful or uncritical sort of. Well, you're playing the wrong system. Just go buy this one, go buy that one. And he just got inundated with recommendations for purchasing different systems. And so his whole thing was, and he made an interesting point, and I'll float this over. There's a lot to unpack, but one of the points he made was, the 6 ability scores down the line are actually pretty damn flexible when you think about it. And you know, you know, he kept bringing up investigative horror as an example. He's like, do you need a sanity stat or a sanity mechanic? And before I could even respond, he goes, but then there's Lamentations of the Flame Princess, which does not use a sanity stat or any kind of stat. In fact, James Raggi would flip out if you suggested that he use one. So I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. Wanted to get what you guys think about. Does systems matter when you sit down as a game master to put together a campaign? Gary.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. Well, if systems didn't matter, we wouldn't have different systems. Listen, Star Wars D6, right? That system feels like Star Wars. It was designed to feel like Star Wars and play like Star Wars. It's big, it's exciting. Dice are all over the place. It's quick. You know what I mean? It was designed to be quick to start. Right? We can get into this fight later, but the BX and AD&D and the whole OSR thing are designed to be played. It's dungeons, it's hex crawls. These are the things we're doing, and those rules are designed for that, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's that simple. The games are designed for the systems are designed for the kind of games you want to play. And I'll tell you, I don't think any D20 system. I know people are going to say, "What about Mutants and Masterminds?" I don't think it does superheroes that great. I don't think it did Star Wars that great. I think D20 is great for fantasy. Yeah, you have to have different systems, even if it's just for different flavor. Does system matter? Listen, my favorite part of Wretched is very little to do with the actual system. My favorite part about Wretched is how they replaced alignments with sins and virtues and how they gave it a mechanical basis so that it actually has an effect on the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think absolutely, Chubby. It's hard to run a dungeon crawl with Vampire the Masquerade, for real. And I think, here's
tried.
No. And here's the other thing. So, like, social encounters, right? It's one of not many games have a very robust social encounter system. And I would say that if you're trying to play something like, let's say you're doing like a sci-fi, a Dune kind of game where there's a lot of politics and talking and, leveraging and blackmail and all that kind of bullshit, a charisma check's not going to cut it. Right? It's just not, it doesn't necessarily need to be more complicated. I just don't, now that being said, I do think that, the old school games, OSC, all those kind of things, I think that because of their modular nature, you can alter them and direct them, and kind of shape them to what you want. But it doesn't always work. I mean, Matt, you are kind of on Free League right now. You're not like the biggest proponent, but the first few times you played Alien, it had that, whatever it's called, the panic mechanic or whatever it is, right? And you loved it.
Oh yeah.
And it made it feel like you were playing Alien. You know what I mean? In any of the Star Wars games, you have some kind of force point, or you have like a wild die, or in the narrative system, you have the triumph. These things make it feel like Star Wars. So yeah, system totally matters. And after we've all had to say, I'm kind of dealing with this as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
And there are just some sheer, yes, it fucking, especially if you use your rules. Here's the other thing. If you believe in using the rules of your game and not just being like, oh, I like this, oh, I like that, but you're going to actually use the rules, and system absolutely matters. Done.
All right. Great stream, everybody. See you next week. No. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Actually, Matt, I want to bounce it back to you because when you talked about the Lamentations, uh, uh, how this question was provoked, your curiosity on the topic, you're probably best qualified to speak to, does system matter, and why you chose Lamentations for that type of genre to interpret and design sessions and adventures for your players to respond to. Like what drew you to this to that, I mean, system or theme? I would like to think that you already had themes in your head, but you chose a system, it seems.
Um uh yes. Okay. How do I answer that question? All right. So backstory, if this question was fielded to me like 2 years ago ish, I would be, of course, system matters. There's something out there. You just got to find the right one. Some systems do it better than others, and you just got to find that right system. But lately, especially my latest little standalone video where I talk about the spirit of experimentation, I'm not so certain anymore. I certainly think there's limits that a system can do, and we'll pause because we got Disco Barbarian in the house dropping us a couple bucks here. Hey, thanks, man. Yard Dog Brothers and Sword. Time to get down.
Look at that. That's cool. That's cool.
What's up, Disco? Thanks for showing up, man. But
I eat a Scooby snack. I take a disco nap.
but
Go
but yeah. But now I'm not so certain. And Lamentations is a great example because the only thing different when you compare Lamentations to like classic BX, the only thing really different are all these little nitpicky things he's done to the classes, where fighters are the only ones that get better at fighting. So you have this niche protection, right? And then the spells are a little more dangerous, and you're not going to have fireballs. Magic users are more, not I don't want to say support, but more debilitating for their opponents. And if you mess up your summon, the whole campaign can go to hell. But when you run a Lamentations module, especially one written by James himself, players get the fear. Like, you don't need a panic mechanic, you don't need a sanity mechanic when you're running Lamentations. And I think that goes to the quality of the writing for the adventures and whatnot, and that has nothing to do with setting. So I'm kind of torn at this point. I'm really glad Mike, our faithful fellow watchman here, posed the question, because it got me thinking a little bit more on this. Could you take Call of Cthulhu, for example, and just take out all the guns, right? Substitute flak jackets for like leather armor and run a Lamentations module with it? And what would happen if you did? Like, would you actually lose the experience because now you're keeping track of sanity? You know what I mean? So I have a feeling it would actually ruin the experience because uh, that's just not what you do with Lamentations. It's all about the vibe and the way the encounters are presented. So in that regard, I guess it would matter, precisely because James does not want anything like that. He thinks that whole concept is just dumb. Like sanity, panic mechanics, fear mechanics. Unless it's like a magical compulsion at the end of the day, it's like, if you're doing your job as a game master, and if the writing's good, and your players will feel the fear, you know.
Would you find that when you're designing and constructing, you're inspired more by sometimes these new mechanics or something that touches the stone of what you're trying to emulate, or is it just skeletons for your lore framework of what you want to put out for your themes and setting for them to respond to. And maybe here's a really good way to probably put it, right? You've been chopping wood on this Lamentations campaign for so long, dutifully. If you go to something else, will you be taking parts of this system with you? Because I think this gets us kind of a little bit closer to our own answers. Are there things that now you're pulling from that, having be so well versed in it, it scratched an itch? Would you be taking Lamentations elements to you to, for example, a basic role playing game by Gondorman, or what do you see?
I would honestly though, the only thing I would want to import from or take from Lamentations is the skill set system, like what I call the common adventuring skills, because I just think the D6 system is great. But I mean, you see that in BX, right? And it's not that big of a deal to just incorporate the classic, from BECME or advanced D&D, the percentile system, and just give it to all the characters. I mean, it's actually kind of implied when you think about it, like a base chance for pickpocketing and whatnot. But that has nothing to do with tone. That has nothing to do with, that's just something it's like a preference. I'm like, I just like rolling 1d6 chance to pick a pocket. I just like that. I don't think that has anything to do with tone. That's just for gaming.
Real quick,
if that makes sense.
Matt, I'm curious, when you say, you play a game with Raji or something like that, and you feel the fear without the mechanic. Do you feel that fear because of like the way he's describing things? Is it his performance? Is it like, what is it that gives you that? Because I want it to depend upon some sort of theatrical performance as little as possible.
Well,
right. So how much of that is his skill as a game master in describing things?
Well, just for clarification, I've never gamed with him. What I meant was just like the writing that he has presented. And the one that comes to mind, it's very controversial. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite ones. I've run it on my channel. So there's an actual play of Death, Love, Doom. He wrote it shortly after his divorce. So he was in a particularly particular headspace.
Right, from what you know.
And so it's about a family that is cursed by love, in a sense, and something terrible happens. And it's like one of the first encounters is like I think she's 6 years old, and she's still alive, but she's been, we'll just say, reshaped in a very awful way, and she's whimpering and crying, and she doesn't understand. And that's what you kind of describe to the players. And every time I've run this, like, you just see the players start to cringe, and like, without a doubt, everyone starts talking about mercy killing and all this other stuff. Very uncomfortable.
Because
no mechanic. There's no mechanic there. I'm sorry, Brian, you kind of cut out.
I'm saying that it's provocative. It's provoking action. Granted, it comes from a really surreal place when we're talking about immersion, but it is provoking action, which the best systems do.
Well, and that's kind of the. I mean, I know I ring I'm like the champion of Lamentations of the Flame Princess, but to me, that's the genius of what Raji does. Mm-hmm. He just knows how to find the right authors to put together modules and settings that you don't need any of this stuff. You could take Death, Love, Doom and run BX with it. The only difference is you'd have a fireball ready to take on Grandma. Yeah. Spoiler alert: Grandma's the bad guy.
Okay.
But
yeah. So okay. So in that case, system does kind of matter, right? Like you have a difference in the magic system, which makes you a bit weaker. Yeah, I think I'll concede. I think you've convinced me that like having a feeling of fright can just be really playing well. But I come back to social encounters again. And what I mean by that is if you have a game that's heavy on social encounters and it's heavy on NPCs, I think that, you know, BX could do it, but I think there are probably better
Yeah.
ways to do it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too.
Right?
I don't have an answer to this question at all. I'm hoping maybe I
Yeah.
come to
I'm
a
just
determination by the end of the night. But what I wanted to
so
jump off it because I do agree with you. Like if you're doing Dune, you know, and some maybe you're using Star Adventure or something and you're trying to do a Dune thing, you are going to want some kind of social encounter mechanic because yeah, and you said this before in some of our private conversations and even on the show, you don't want the success or failure of your character's social encounter to be dependent upon whether or not you've entertained the game master. There should be some mechanic to help you. And that's one of the reasons one of the things I
right,
love the most about Bear the Gen X GM's Zenith Comics Publishing Heroic. It's Marvel Supers
right.
with a few tweaks, but it's got social mechanics, and Marvel really doesn't have that. And I just love that because
Yeah.
now I have a mechanic to help me navigate those events, right? So I don't know. I don't know. I'm torn. And just to kind of dovetail and just to show you how complicated my thought process is on it. So on the one hand, I got Lamentations of the Flame Princess, right? On the other hand, I
Hmm.
got Alien RPG, and yes, that stress mechanic is friggin' awesome. Like when I used to run a lot of Call of Cthulhu Halloween one shots, and those were a lot of fun, and my players really liked them because I had my own personal Jason Voorhees that would pop up, and there was always this connection to this guy, this disembodied lich type character. But it was always kind of a bummer to be like, all right, man, you failed your sanity check. Take 3 sanity, and someone would be sitting there writing, and then they'd be like, wait a minute, was it 3 or should it actually be 1? And then you start talking about the numbers, and that totally takes you out of the action, right?
Yeah.
Where the panic mechanic actually forces you to have these giant pools of dice in your hand. So even if you start talking mechanics, are you sure I have this many dice? All of a sudden, and then there's like, oh crap, man! If I panic, I'm not getting this bulkhead open, and the xenomorph is going to get me. You know,
Right.
you actually see a reaction from the mechanic itself at play, and to me, that mechanic is so genius to me because it breaches the veil between the real and the unreal. You know, the very real person sitting there and this like imaginary character. I rarely see that with a game mechanic, but this one does it. So does system matter? If you bring that as an example, I say yes. You showed me Lamentations, and I say no. So I don't know where are we going with this. Help me out, guys.
Yeah. No, I'm is I think system makes for a different kind of game. I think it's hard for us to, you know, at least I know me and Matt play a lot of the OSR style games. I'm an OSC guy. He does Lamentations. Um, I just think it would be real hard to mold those games to do a lot of different things, and it's always going to feel the same, even if you do sci-fi, say with OSC or Shadow Dark or whatever. You've got to account for things like the dungeon and the hex crawl, and it kind of becomes a genreified version of what that game
Okay.
was built to do. You know what I
I think
right? Does
so.
that make sense?
I don't I don't know.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It can work, but if you're being true to the game itself, and that's the other point I was making is, are you playing rules as
Oh
written?
boy.
Are you, you know, do you care about the rules? Because that does make a lot of difference, man. There's a lot of people who don't give a shit, and they will change the rules before they
Hmm.
even get it to the table. So it's just, you know, so if you want to play the game, right, then system completely matters. If you're going to mold that game into whatever is your thing that you want to do, then
Well,
maybe system
and
doesn't
that
matter,
sorry, Brian, I just want
right?
to make this real
Yeah.
quick point. Well, that's essentially what Lamentations was. James was like, I like BX, but it's not scary enough. So I'm going to take out Fireball. I'm going to
Right.
take out all this other stuff. I'm going to make sure only fighters fight. So when the specialist gets trapped with the monster, he's screwed. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so maybe system doesn't matter. Go.
So, okay, well, let's look at it from a different angle because I have a very specific issue I'm dealing
Hold that
with
thought. Brian
right
Brian
now
had
when it
something.
comes to
Brian had
system.
something.
Oh, keep going.
Oh no,
Sorry, Brian.
I think it's fun watching you both parse and oscillate between this and where each of you started and just thinking aloud together. And I think you're both right. I think does the system matter? Yes. And do systems matter? Yes. So, what we kind of is turning this into two different things. And why systems matter is the more experience that we all get with systems and that our players get with systems, the more comfortable we all are with change. Change is the agent that drives tabletop role playing games, however, it's accomplished by choice or by dice being resolved. That change state is what we're seeking. So systems matter because the more we get swimming into some of these different waters of stress or horror or sanity in that particular term, but whatever the mechanic is, actionable, hero points, karma, and those things, it's giving us all this wonderful things that we can speculate on to be able to continue to enhance our experience at the table. So when we have a lot of that versatility, now system matters because we have the bones to build the muscle and the flesh on of what we're trying to create for these visceral experiences, dramatic moments, awesome John Wickian, James Cameron-esque escalating tension scenes of rising, first, second, third act feels. I think of running all the different systems and all the different settings of espionage and Wild West and cyberpunk and gothic horror and all these things. And I would probably offer that all of my players, even if the new ones at the game store or my rotating games, they all feel the same. The games feel the same, and I think that's because the more that we all play these different games, we start to intuitively draw upon it, and we make our system better the more systems we play. And Gary, you probably could speak to that.
But Brian, well,
I
hang
hope
on.
that
I want
makes
to ask you a
sense.
question
Well,
though. It does. Of the games you're playing though, like how different are they really?
well, I mean, Boot Hill, is way different. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, sure. Okay, but I
resolution
mean,
of
like
combat,
currently,
and there's things that you can pull and make whatever, because you might find something in
right?
what you're doing.
Are you currently running
No,
Boot
no,
Hill?
no, no. I haven't checked
Okay, the games that you are
Shadow Dark and
currently
5e24
running.
right now.
Yeah. See, I mean, and they're a lot different, right?
They are, but
Are,
like I mean,
but but it's the same kind of. You would think. Okay, about 6 weeks ago, right? We come on the show, and I am stoked about starting a West Marches style campaign using OSC. And I'm drawing dungeons and I'm getting things ready and all kinds of stuff. Me and Matt and Webb are, we're online talking and they're giving me suggestions and I'm putting things together. And then out of nowhere, boom, Shadow Dark comes out with the Western Reaches thing, right? Okay. Now, obviously, speaking of which, just a side note, I don't buy physical products. I have the reverse fucking hoarder thing. If I get too much shit, I get weirded out and I start throwing things in my front lawn. And I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. I throw shit out. I can't handle having too much stuff. I back the slipcase with the cool covers. I figured, well, I should probably get a physical copy of the core book. So I got that. And then I was looking for anything else that seemed like semi-official, so I went ahead and ordered a physical copy of the Shucked Oyster. So I just want to say that as we talk about this, I'm good with Shadow Dark. All right, like I'm good with it. Okay,
But
but as I'm in this excitement mode for all the new Shadow Dark stuff, right? and how it's going down. I'm still thinking about this West Marches campaign. I'm thinking, fuck it, man. I'll just use Shadow Dart, right? And already, rules wise, system wise, there are several different reasons not to use it, at least in its current state, without whatever she's doing in
The PDF will be
Western
coming out
Reaches,
probably a
right?
lot sooner than the print. So,
Hey, fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed. And I'm gonna play the shit out of it as soon as I get those PDFs. We're gonna start games on the server, okay? However, as it stands right now, I'm not gonna touch that system for a one-to-one time sandbox game.
Why?
Time.
time, one-to-one time.
Time is fluffy in Shadow Dark. Time is fluffy,
game,
man.
though, right? I mean,
And no, it's not. Not if you're playing BX. Look, if you're playing BX rules as written, right? Then no, it's not fluffy at all. Everything is broken down into time. Every second is accounted for. And when you're doing a Western Reaches game, time is fairly important, right?
Yeah, that little space on the right to the left of your red line on your notebook, that's where I start jotting down little hash marks for every turn whenever I'm playing. And then whenever there's like 6 hash marks, I go, new torch, guys. You know?
No, it's a procedural game, man. Right. And you check off the turns, and torches last so many, and you roll for random encounters at this because it's a fucking game and it has rules, and they expect you to use the rules. That's for fair. That game.
And I think you got a good point too with the fluffiness, because with the torch timer, a lot of that stuff just you could, if you have a very efficient gaming crew, which is like a unicorn, right? But assume you have them, they can clear out a dungeon in an hour with one torch, technically, right? So no, I hear what you're saying about the fluffiness of it all.
So there's the time. There's also there is no. I'm not going to say that Old School Essentials is perfect when it comes to like domain play and all that kind of the high level build your ship play. Yeah. But there's none of it. And yet, I expect a third party is going to come along. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But that's an option that I want to know is there in case we ever reach it. Because when you plan for this kind of game, right, you want to make sure all those options are open for whatever your player's motivation may be. If they ever reach that, good on them.
And
you know what I mean?
Cerulean makes a really good point here too. You know, and kind of what we've been talking about. The 1-to-1 time seems counter to the loosey-goosey feel of Shadow Dark in terms of things like distance, close, near, far. I think he's right there. I agree, but we have to see what she's going to do with the Western Reaches.
Absolutely.
And
hey, man, I don't want to take. I'm not trying to talk shit about Shadow Dark. I think Shadow Dark is great. If you got a group of friends that get together every Sunday and you fucking play with the same people and you're doing the thing, it's you play with the kids. I play with the kids. It's great.
I wanted to highlight this real quick.
But not for this. It's not. And
somewhat tangent, somewhat loosely related to this. Sylvie, you mentioned this earlier, and I flagged it because I brought it up. In defense of Call of Cthulhu's sanity mechanic, I see it as a persistent change between sessions, maybe, and should reflect in the role play. I do agree with that. Like the sanity mechanic seems more for long-term play. And if you can see behind me, I have the right there is the Massive Nyarlathotep campaign, which is supposed to take place over years in game. Okay. And so if your character is getting insane, eventually it might be unplayable and you have to introduce a new character. And then he becomes the guy in the straitjacket that knows a little too much and this, that, and the other thing. So I get that. And in going back, comparing it to Lamentations, I don't think Raji, and I certainly don't think so. I don't think any of these guys, any of these modules, anyone expects to survive the whole shebang. Like, that's why I run a lot of Lamentations as one shot. So,
expectation of the system or of the adventure? or the?
I think it's the adventure. I think it's the better. Chubby, hey, thanks for sticking around, man. We appreciate you stopping by, man. Take it easy. We'll be in touch.
Thanks,
And the
Chubby.
reason why I asked
Yeah,
that is
can't wait to
because
have you
that
on.
question, I think, maybe helps differentiate the answers that we might seek, whether or not we oscillate between whether it's so, it what is the ultimate goal? What are you trying to resolve? If the goal is what you're wanting, Gary, then you're probably right. Yes, there's some elements. I do think at some point you're going to have a moment of truth in a West Marches game, having run West Marches game, where there's going to be some sort of choice that's going to have to be made regarding time and it being incongruent somewhere, somehow. And then, at that point, if you've chosen the system that gives you something to fall back on that is a bit more robust, then you can point to that. So you're
Well,
probably right. You're spot on.
should there be any continuity mishaps, the goddess of destiny and the god of time, Kronos, most likely will arrive to set things straight. If things get real messy, maybe they're already having a fight somewhere and you just shouldn't go there. I don't know. I'll figure it out. I've thought through really every possible scenario, and I will tell you this about this kind of game. I mean, you're hoping you get a lot of players, right? You're kind of hoping you have this problem. Oh, I gotta deal with this. Like, that's the problem. I'm okay if I have that problem. That good, good on me. So I'm not going to worry about it. In fact, you know, um, I'm not gonna. I think, and I've been working on a document, and I'll share it with you guys. It's actually a document I share with you, Matt, that I've updated quite a bit since last time talking about this for the players, sort of like the beginning of the players primer or whatever. Um, and I don't even know if I should put that out. I kind of feel like I should just say, "Hey, we're gonna play a game. I'm running the game. Let me know when you can play." And I'll just run it 1-to-1 time and let them know. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
have some speculation.
I kind of feel like I should just run a game and
I'm
not
just
worry
throwing this
about it.
out, but it would seem that in choosing a system that does give you a lot of that granularity that you're seeking, West Marches, I think, will really, that sort of style game flourishes online because it is so incremental and marked. It makes it easier to manage. With having you're going to be turning away players
Well,
is what I think
yeah,
it's going to happen.
I doubt it. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. We'll see.
There's all
We'll see what happens. I mean, I hope that'd be great. But the point of this is just to say is that we have two systems, which I would say two of the top three systems right now for me. Right, you've got Shadow Dark and OSE, and although they both come from the same place, it obviously the changes that were made matter. So system matters. It's not just about genre. It's not just, it's about what are you trying to do with your game. I think, Matt's talked about this sort of Saturday morning cartoon thing he's working on where he's using Universal Table, not Marvel, 4-color, what's it called? 4CP, right?
4CP. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, adjustments that need to be made to that. It has to matter. It fucking matters.
You might be right there too, because Ultra American TTRPGer flagged me about a week ago because he knows about this project. He wants to help play test it, and he's like, "Hey, have you seen this?" And the guy who did Face Ripopedia put out like a dungeon crawler using the system. I can't remember what it was called, like Dragon something or other. And I didn't buy it, but I started like on Drive Through RPG. I had a pretty extensive like entry, so I'm just kind of sifting through it, and it looks like he actually tried to do like classes, skills, and all this other stuff. And I got thinking, my first reaction was, shit, someone's doing what I want to do. But then when I actually looked at the details, I'm like, well, this is very different from what I'm doing. And I don't think it would be fun to play. Like, why just play D&D? You know what I mean? because the universal table, that whole face rip system, is for that like over the top comic book feel action, where it is a little bit more loosey goosey with the timekeeping. You know, I described it as, especially the way Marvel does, like the order of combat, where you declare
Declarative
what you're doing,
initiative is great.
then you roll initiative, and then if you change what you want to do, you suffer penalties. I love that because it feels like you're looking at a comic book panel. And then if you do something cool with karma, it's like the big splash page where Spider-Man's doing all these
It's a
punches and
game
stuff or
mechanic
whatever.
that emulates what you're wanting to accomplish. It fits the
Yeah,
objective. Declarative,
yeah,
and that's a great example. Matt. That's great.
yeah. And that's why I chose that to do like this Saturday morning cartoons thing where you play He-Man, you play Lion-O, you know what I mean? You play the Silverhawks, you play G.I. Joe maybe. You know, I've actually just developed what I think might work, wargaming rules using the face rip system. But then here we are. I've imported what might work as wargaming rules. I haven't seen that anywhere with the 4-color system. If I'm wrong, someone please chime in. In which case, maybe system doesn't matter if you know what you're doing with the system. Take
Matt,
that, Gary.
well, no, I hear you. But you know, we asked Brian last week. We were talking about modern games, and we said, Brian, do you think you could use Marvel to run a non-super powered modern game? And his first answer was no.
That's true. Yeah, I remember that.
You know what I mean? I for whatever reason, Fantasy Flight's Star Wars and Genesis was on my brain a little bit this week. You know, and one of the things that I keep remembering about that game when I'm trying to think of something bad about it, because I love it so much, right? I don't care. I do love it. But fuck you. But one of the things that I do remember about it is that when you're first starting out, you don't have a lot of skills. You know, you're rolling like mostly green dice. There's a lot of like you can whiff in that game, right? It's not a failure, but it's not a success.
Yeah.
You just whiff. There's a lot of that at the beginning of that game, you know. So I don't really think that game would be good for a sort of a low level. You know, I guess they tried. I could be wrong, but you know, it gives indications to me that it just wouldn't be right. Why is Wretched perfect for modern gaming when other games aren't?
That's a great question because
Well, that's
I brought this up previously with the modern campaign thing. Do I run a game using modern necessities, which is pretty popular, and it's based off the OSC game engine, or do I use Wretched? And I've been leaning towards Wretched mostly because while there are these like character classes, I think they're called archetypes. That's all they are. It's like you're the performer, you're the dancer, you're the actress, or you're the man of action, and then you, the character, can kind of define what that means through the purchase of skills and other little background things. And I think that just feels more modern to me versus these tropes that you see in fantasy games.
And what I would say to you is that going back to that conversation is that Wretched is, even though the rules are very similar, right? We're looking at one or two. So, and we, since we're talking about a D20 game, I would call it a modular change, right? We're looking at one or two modular changes in this, and it's different than modern necessities. I would say if you're going to play the A team, Mission Impossible, you know, a squad, a team, something mission based. Modern necessities is the way.
Gary,
to
can
go.
you explain?
As soon as you get into story and character and all that kind of stuff, once you get into all the dramatics of it,
when you were saying modular, you're saying modular in terms of implementation pieces that you can pull, or you're saying
yeah, well, the thing about the old, you know, D20, we all know this, I'm not teaching anybody anything, is that it's a mixed match of systems, right? It's not like it's not like 5e where you know, it's D20 rollover, right? It's more of a, you know, it's this is how you hit people, this is how you check listen at a door. This is how you pickpocket. Da, 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 da. It's a so you can take things out. I do think OSC or whatever you want to call it, BX. I do think the older games can be modified to an extent, right? I do think there's a limit. Once again, I go to superheroes. I don't think they can do superheroes.
Yeah,
Just
there's
because of the
stress
scale of
fractures with a
everything.
lot of the original designed systems that and we know those answers because a lot of times whenever TSR tried to overlay it, it only went for so long and it just didn't stick. And then they realized the error of their
Yeah.
ways and having to really make things very distinct from what they originally had as their core mechanics.
Well,
So shared
and I
gospel
want to be
systems
I
are
want to be
great
clear to
if you have somebody that's really fluent in them and they're able to just free associate, assimilate, and implement with just that confidence. Because that's an important part. Confidence in system or systems is such a very big part of translating that
well,
experience so that you're
and this is yeah, and this is where we get to start talking about system because we go back to character, right? I don't want these things to be decided by GM fiat. You know what I mean? I don't want the social encounter. I don't want anything to rely. I, I don't want it to be a ruling, right? I don't want it
you
to
want to be
be up to
adjudicated
the
by a result.
judge as to whether or not I want there to be a fucking rule. I want the rule
Do you
to be
want a
followed,
rule or do you
and I
want to be
want that
adjudicated
to
by a
happen.
result? It's important. It's a distinction.
No, what I'm saying is I don't want to have to act
That's different.
out a
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
scene and and hope that my
Yeah.
that
Improv
my
theater convincing. Yeah.
GM
We don't
thinks
want
I
that.
did a yeah, fuck all that. Next time I run a game with him, I'm gonna make him do some push-ups before he does a strength check. You know what I mean? I don't like it.
No, I agree.
So I
That's
want
too much
yeah,
immersion.
so
That's
I
way too
don't
much.
want that. So yeah, so it just depends on what you're doing. If you're playing yeah, system does matter. Now, some systems are more malleable. But here's the other thing. Let's ask
Mhm.
ourselves, if system doesn't matter, why aren't generic systems more popular? Right?
Oh, like
Like these are
GURPS.
systems.
Everyone,
It's designed to do fucking everything. Why aren't we talking about GURPS every goddamn
that's a
week
good point.
and the new third party Kickstarter and the yada yada yada? Why aren't we doing that?
Yeah, I think we already
I
have
don't
two
know.
editions of answers,
Well,
but go ahead. Go ahead, Matt.
um, I think. Well, hold on one second. Cerulean
Oh, that's a good
Rex.
one. Look at you.
This is
Good.
this is why this is why the three of us started talking
Yep.
all those years ago. 100% agree. We think um, there is something about a game master that kind of supervenes over all these other discussions, and that's what we're trying to get at through these conversations. So, Cerulean, awesome, we love it. All right, back to the point that I lost completely. um,
Well, if
oh,
systems can yeah,
GURPS,
generic.
generic, yeah. Well, it could be what you're getting at, but it could also be, I don't know, like I just sort of feel like game masters like to tinker with things,
So
and that's why I'm
that's why
trying to
no system's
be
ever perfect,
a
right?
little,
Nothing is ever.
yeah, and that's why I'm trying not to be that, the one true way guy, because I don't think a lot of what you see on the what the talking heads like to do is, I mean, again, I said it before, I will say it again, those are good to listen to because they give you reasons for why you should use those particular tools, but I'm not going to use a hammer for every project, right? And I think that sort of desire for experimentation and playing with our imaginations and the rules to those imaginations, if GURPS does everything, that takes away my chance to play
Flavorless.
with things.
It,
Yeah, like I want an imperfect system so I can
because you're
craft
becoming a
and
master of a
play around with
singular
it.
system rather than a student of many. And Gary, you said it so well. You want something that's going to be able to give you the ability to either get the result or the rule for reference. again, two very different things because the result sometimes is the resolution, but the rule is the adjudication. So like these are sometimes very hard to kind of parse in systems unless you kind of do a little bit of your due diligence, which means being a student. Being a student of systems gives you the ability to sometimes go through, whether it's a small book, like a quick start guide for Shadow Dark, which one of my new players, we're kicking off a new campaign next weekend, and he's that's where he starts, and he wants to know. Well, nope, now he went and kickstarted, a couple $100 because he wants all the rules. He wants it all there, which is always great to see in our players. When our players really start diving into whatever it is that that we've chosen as game masters, or somebody brought said, "I'd like to play this." Well, then our brain starts saying, "Well, what system could I run that in?" My players are really interested in this, or I'm very passionate about it. But Gary, I think you're spot on in just being able to identify and diagnose what's going to allow us to move through. So,
what's that? There's an REM song about something sleeps tonight. What is that? What song is that?
No,
oh, is it? No. I can't remember. There's. Anyway, thanks, Flint. No, Lion Sleeps Tonight, some other tune. I can't remember. REM's got.
It's from the motherfucking Jungle King.
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm talking about. There was an REM tune. I can't remember. Anyway, I wasn't a huge fan of REM. They had some
Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight.
I think to be an REM fan.
There it is. Thank you. I knew I wasn't.
I think you're only allowed to be an REM fan. Like you become an REM fan when you're like a sophomore in college.
I have one REM song I love, and all others
shit about REM. I can't stand REM. All right.
Hey. I like REM. I just not all of their albums. And there's
a couple songs I like.
I was the indie grunge kid back in the 90s. So,
actually, I have a great REM story. I'll tell it a different time. Anyway, systems, yeah, they matter. Here's the thing, because it's about to go into a bigger conversation, and the bigger conversation, here's what it really comes down to. This is a bigger conversation. What are you trying to accomplish with your game? Are you playing it rules as written, or how closely are you adhering to rules as written? Right. I think that's really
I want to address that, but I want to also answer Wibb's question here. Have you looked at Basic Role Playing System Engine? This is a toolkit that you can use to build your own customized game. I have heard of it. I've actually seen what the cover looks like, but I have never physically picked it up and looked at it or skimmed through a PDF. So I guess the answer is no, but I am aware of it. I suspect it's probably going to be a lot like GURPS, though. Something that purports to do everything. And Disco coming in with the you become an REM fan when you met a hot chick that likes them. That is 100% true.
Word.
Yes.
Word. There was this Cure song that got caught on the CD player on repeat when I was about 16 years old at this girl's house. It's burned into my brain. I've heard it a million times. It's the only Cure song I like.
For some reason, Law Dog Super Chat's not. There it is. It took a little second to actually pop up. $10 from Law Dog. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. And posit that Palladium bridged the gap between system and setting.
He sent 2, bro. That's the second one.
Oh, he sent 2? All right.
Yeah. Law Dog. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, the other one's not.
Hey, everybody, listen. We've got 12 people watching. Can we please get some likes? We're trying to build the channel. We're almost to 1,000 subscribers. Trying to build the channel up. We're about to send Matt on a PR tour of streams and podcasts. So if we could please get some likes, I'm looking. It still says 4. That'd be great. Thank you, guys.
His other super chat just didn't pop up. I don't know why. But
here, I've got it. If systems don't matter, why aren't universal systems more popular? Agreed. That's an astute observation, of course.
He doesn't.
One might look at the popularity of Palladium in the 90s, second only to D&D. and posit that Palladium bridged the gap between system and setting, providing a universal system supply with a variety of settings to play using that system. I never played any Palladium games.
I did. They were good. I I've met Kevin Sambita. I was on a panel discussion with him. He's a really nice guy, but man, some of those books were hard to get through in terms of understanding how to play the game. But it was a system that could handle quite a bit. You have Palladium Fantasy, and then you have Rifts, which is like weird futuristic, but it combines like all this other stuff. Ninjas and Super Spies had, well, it was about ninjas and super spies. You had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They handled quite a bit. And I don't know, it was fun to play. I had a lot of fun playing it, but how different the game was from one one genre thing to the next, setting to the next, wasn't that much. Like in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, he had mutation rules. In Rifts, you had the Glitter Boys and Mega Damage, which was like one mega damage point was equal to 100 structural damage, which was your standard, damage for stuff. But
right. Well, I don't know. I know people who love Rifts. The guys who love Rifts, they fucking love Rifts. You know what I mean?
Better with bacon. It says your name says it all, dude. If you're making the rounds, Matt, I'd love to have you on. I quite like the baptism idea you've been discussing. Thank you. I'd love to be on. We'll talk on X. Just DM me. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Sorry, Gary. Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Well, I think Palladium, like there wasn't a whole lot that needed to be changed, but at the same time, the differences was all setting, and from what I recall. Now again, I mean Ninjas and Super Spies, he had like 30 different like combat maneuvers or styles you could learn. So your characters would be a little different depending on what they knew in terms of combat. But that was all setting. I would say mostly setting to differentiate from one book to
Well,
the
I mean,
next.
this is the fascinating part in just kind of thinking of it at a macro view. And I don't mean for this to sound divisive, but it might. But do systems matter more to our players or to the game master?
It depends on if your players suck or not.
Okay, let's assume that they are
Sorry.
new to the
Like-
game, they're excited, or maybe they're not as proficient. Like when you say suck, were you being serious? Like sometimes, like if there's just bad players? Or,
Not really. I think, listen, here's the thing. I think better players know the system. I think the players that have the most fun know the system. I think there are people who will jump into games where they don't know and they'll learn while playing the game, and that's fine. That's a valid way of learning, right? But I've had experiences with people who just don't give a fuck to learn. They want to be there, they want to participate, but they're going to let me tell them everything to do and how to do it.
With my newer players, Shadow Dark, I've noticed they've had more fun with that than 5e if they've never played, because it's a single page. So the less they know, the more we go. Like we get a lot through. So I mean, you're right. I mean, the players play a very big part, whether or not the system matters.
Well, and that's who gets the. That's who's gonna the players that know the game are gonna get the most out of the game, right? I mean, it's just that simple, because I may not have time to explain, whatever it is that might change, how they look at it. So anyway, is the sound not in sync with the video, or is it just me?
Yeah.
It is not just you. We go out all the time. Matt slows up, or one of us slows up, and then we're all playing catch up. And I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, I blame Restream. So, or Gary.
So it could be me. You never know. It could be something I'm doing. No, I think the biggest point of this though is, I'm trying to think of generic systems that kind of last. And we've got GURPS. Is Savage Worlds generic?
I think it is, because it's Savage. I've only sort of seen Savage Worlds. I've never played it. But
I've read
but
it.
yeah,
I've played it a
but
few
I
times.
see it pop up in different contexts all the time, like Savage Worlds Rifts, and I think I saw like a
Right.
Supers or something, and
There's a fantasy, there's a sci-fi. So yeah, I guess that it would be considered generic. Um, it's not it just really depends. I think games that are tailored, look, I keep going back to it. The Star Wars games from about 10 years ago, they were tailored to feel not just like Star Wars, but like different aspects of Star Wars. And it's three books using the same system that all felt different because of one rule change,
yeah.
one mechanic, you know, because those rules mean something different if you're a Jedi or something, or if you're a criminal, or it's just now, like I said, you can import these things into other games, these concepts, but it doesn't always work out, you know. It just doesn't always happen. So I think we all agree system matters. I win.
No. No, I want to agree, but then
I think with certain,
then you say things like you can import these things, in which case it's no longer about system.
well, I agree.
It's about
Well,
zip. It's about the game master. It's about the game master tinkering and to create an experience, a particular experience, which goes back to, and this is for Bacon, what you want to baptize. What are you trying to create at that time? So
I would say that if you do it before the game starts, if your players like if it's something you've tinkered with before actual gameplay happens, like I think that's excusable, right?
well, of course it should be. I mean,
It's changing it once the campaign
well, what
started,
if? Okay, all right. Well,
or for the situation, what's going to be
oh well,
cool.
I'm not a rule of cool guy.
Yeah.
I think rule of cool gets misunderstood as like the Ming vase thing from Matt
They
Vint.
fucking put it in rule books now.
Well, I know they shouldn't have, because that's saying don't use rules. But that's a complete misunderstanding of what Matt Fitch was saying in the OSR primer about the what's it called, the problem of the Ming vase. If you have a fight going around and there's a Ming vase on a table, like something should happen to that Ming vase. So like so I tried, when I see a natural 1 or a natural 20, I'll embellish what's going on in the combat, and either give an advantage or disadvantage or something, just to make things kind of interesting. It's hard to remember to do that, of course, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of rule of cool like that at all. And I think it gets abused. But what we're talking about though, and we're starting to get into the conversation of
Absolutely.
rules as written and rules as written, rules as intended, and all this other stuff. And I don't think it's a problem to, once the campaign is underway, the players are having a particular issue, and maybe you're having the same issue, and it's just some incongruity is happening with your players, and a particular rule or a way a certain thing plays out in the game, to sit back and go, you know what, let's house rule this, so everyone can continue enjoying the campaign without scrapping it or doing something completely, you know, different, just sort of like this house rule. And that's kind of how I see house rules versus homebrew. Homebrew, Gary, is like what you were talking about, what you do before when you're sitting down your campaign, you have like this idea in your head, you're going to homebrew something. I'm going to import this new class, or I'm going to import these crazy weather rules using a hex flower, and or whatever. But then you're playing the game, and something comes up. So like with Lamentations, the first year, like when I sat down with that game, I said, I'm going to play Lamentations, rules as written, hell or high water. We're going to play this game, and I want to see how this game plays out. And about a
Is that
year
Matt or is it me?
into, I don't know. I'm talking, so everything good.
Good. Good.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
but a year into the game, it was a pretty lethal game, and the players were like, this death spiral is kind of getting annoying, and so we started importing a few rules. We imported stuff from Axe, and then we also imported a shield break rule, so like you could ignore all damage if you sacrificed your shield for a round or something like that. So and that house rule I felt was okay to do. It didn't break the game at all, and everyone continued to have fun with the campaign. And I don't think you're a terrible game master if you do that sort of thing. I think you're servicing your players and servicing the campaign. I don't know. All right.
Agreed. So let's what adjustments? Well, we don't need to get into the particular adjustments you made, but were they core to the system or were they just for what you needed? Like, I guess when we talk about does system matter, there's always something at the core of a system that makes it different, right? Whether it's the time rule, fucking torch timer, it's why did you change that, and was it core to the system? A little rule change here or there might not make that big a difference, but it could, right?
Oh,
Like,
well, if my
it
players were
could.
all like, dude, encumbrance is such a drag, can we just not deal with encumbrance and have sheets upon sheets of all the stuff we're carrying, like this giant backpack? I would say no, because that would
Right,
go towards the
right.
core experience of the game. But telling people, hey, if you want to donate some of your silver to bank for extra XP when you replace a
Yeah.
character upon death, like what Axe does, or like the heroic send off, I got nothing against that. That actually helps the party, because now they're not. These fourth level guys aren't showing up with this one first level scrub. Now he's second level or something. You know what I mean?
See, right, but that's an enhancement. You've enhanced the gameplay
I think
experience,
so.
right? To me, right, but I don't see that as it changing the core of the game. So, for example, what Raji does with Lamentations, where fighters are the only ones that get better at fighting, that changes the game,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that really makes that system unique, and the specialists are the only ones that get skills, and the way. I mean, he's really niched that out, so it's kind of it matters. You know what I mean? It
Are
matters.
we still trying
I
to
guess
convince
that's where I just
ourselves?
kind of
I think we all came to the conclusion. Like,
yeah.
Well, go
I've
for it.
got to pee.
No, I'm
I
gonna see. I'm
win.
gonna
I
keep
win.
arguing it
I
doesn't.
win. Well, you'll do better with me
No,
not here.
I'm like I said, like I think there are the system matter. I think when you're sitting down to start a campaign, I think you really gotta figure out what it is that you want to do. And if I guess I would argue if a system can do it as written, then your job just got easier. Because now you don't have to do a whole lot of thinking and tinkering. But if the system isn't really doing what you want to do, or isn't accomplishing the goal you're trying to accomplish with the campaign, I don't know, tinker.
so, you hit on probably one of the greatest touchstones in this hobby. When you talked about encumbrance, like almost every game, it might be very different, but there's always what do you have, and what do you have can mean incredible importance, especially in Wes Marches and what he wants to accomplish. If you're playing a survival type of Darkest Dungeon like Shadow, yes, it does. But then if you're going for super heroic play, or are you going to track Spider-Man's web shooter cartridges?
Right. Yeah.
And then it becomes like, well, also, and rule of cool, like there's so many different ways you can just disturb it. But for me, rule of cool is it going to derail the game? Is it not believable within the context of the genre, the characters, and the scene? What are we trying to accomplish? So for me, I always equate it to this. Of course, the Punisher brought a rocket launcher. Of course, the Punisher brought a grenade launcher because that fits that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask the player playing Frank Castle to go through and itemize and keep up with their ammunition, keep up with all the cool things, because for that sort of medium, what we're trying to accomplish, it doesn't make sense. Is that rule cool? It maybe is, but that's the point, maybe, because Punisher's kind of cool.
Yeah.
We're playing with characters that maybe aren't born out of some sort of IP where we have these preconceived notions. Well, wait a minute. Those preconceived notions and those IPs, well, those are the themes. Those aren't the systems. Those aren't the systems drawing that. Aliens, all the stuff within the Free League tent, but even some of the stuff that old boy from Evil Genius games, did, like getting all these IPs. Well, systems matter, but sometimes they don't. Everyday Heroes was basically completely subsidized by an interest in IP. I probably should have said this when Gary was here, because he's the one that went down the journey and the rabbit hole of discovery, fascination, concern, angst, and eventually disdain. That was his 6 stages of grief with the Everyday Heroes.
Right. Yeah.
So we can also look and see situations, recent situations, successful situations, where no, system did not matter. People bought in. I would go so far, though, as to probably say that systems matter more to game masters, because we have to create a confident structure to work from as a scaffold with our players. Players gravitate sometimes a lot more to things that aren't system intrinsic because they want to play a fiction.
Yeah.
And I know you and Gary were going back and forth. I was waiting to kind of chime in, and now he's gone, because we know he would have something to say on this, some really cool stuff, some worth to offer here. But so I think everyone's right on this, and there is certainly a lot of merit, though, in having the dialogue, not just game master to game master, as we're so experienced to being, but having that honest dialogue with your players. What is most important to you? Do you want to play? And Gary, what we touched upon was, well, does system matter? It can, but in the case of Evil Genius Games and the success that they enjoyed with the Everyday Heroes property, I would offer that there was a lot of people that gravitated because they wanted to play Escape from New York. They wanted to play The Crow. They wanted to play Highlander.
That doesn't mean
Not
that
saying
system
Well,
doesn't
but that
matter.
was
I want to
How
jump
does
off of something that Ed said and you said, Brian, and kind of what you're getting at with the IPs. So tomorrow, my in-person gaming crew is getting together again, and this is like the first time. It's like it's a second time within 30 days, which is awesome. But we're going to play
Nice.
the Rule Cyclopedia and
Aaron Alston.
and the Gods of the Forbidden North. Or so I'm like really excited, and I decided, because I know they like their character builds and stuff. We're gonna mash a few other things like so there's 3 main cultures in that book. There's the Enuruk, which are the the inhabitants of the Forbidden North. There's the Hadeans, which are like the Roman Empire who have like colonized the place, and then there's the Wujan, which are like basically non-Hadeans, foreigners. Okay, so I decided to use the Barbarian Handbook for the Enuruk, the Glory of Rome for the Hadeans, and then the Viking Handbook for the Wujan. And so the players can pull some of those kits and tack them onto the Rule Cyclopedia characters. I think that'll be fun. I made those decisions because I knew who my players were, and I wanted to make sure that they had something, and it's not all me. Because I'll play straight up Rule Cyclopedia all day, nothing added on, right? But then you have this what their expectations are, and I think one of the main points I'm at the end of the day when I said, so is this cool, they're like, we honestly don't care. We just want we don't care what system. They flat out said that. We just this campaign itself sounds cool. Like, so if I could have used Vampire the Masquerade to run Gods of the Forbidden North, they'd probably be okay with it. So does system matter? I don't know.
And if you nail it, guess what? It's going to go a lot longer than 8 or 10 sessions.
That's
if it,
Okay, first off,
Oh,
not everybody
that's
can be
true.
right.
Yeah,
I just want to say that.
that
So
denies
not
the
everybody can
law
be
of
right.
the excluded middle. Thank you, Aristotle.
Word. How to say this? It does matter. If you have players that don't care what the system is, those are players that don't care about the game aspect, right? So I would venture to say that if you want to get a group of people who want to play a game together, they should care about the game and what the game is, right? And should know a little bit about it.
there are a lot of players that come to the table, and that is their driving force. There's also tabletop role playing game. They come to it for the role play. They want to have immersion. They want to be in a place and with others that has. Don't
You've
y'all
come, you
don't do the
you
player character select thing with me, okay?
you've come so far. I swear to God, dear viewers, I swear to
Fucking
God,
hippies.
4 years ago, 4 years ago, Gary would all be like, "We got to worry about story beats and the themes and the
Right.
direction of the campaign." And now you look at you now, man. You're so OSR. You
You have got it.
Because
Me
they have
earlier.
robbed me of my
I got into
soul.
I got into
Those
a social media.
motherfuckers took all that good shit that I had.
Matt, you just so
I guess I froze up
got us
though, right?
awful neutral. We're going all awful neutral because of Matt.
Yeah, no, look, I think I've hit this place where I feel like if I have to alter the game to a significant degree to fit what I want to accomplish with it, it's
Feels
not the
dishonest.
right
I totally
system.
I see that.
It does. And now there are plenty of ways to modify systems that work. And I think really, the best of those are the older ones that people really know, right? Like with a BX system, it's almost like somebody's doing the work you could have done. When you read, except for a few little twists that are really good, when you read, what's the fuck? I can't believe it. Modern Necessities, right? A lot of those charts, you're like, fuck, I really should have done this. Like
Yeah.
these are just logical. It makes logical sense for things to be this way. I don't know. But at the same time, there just comes a point where you just can't twist it anymore. You can't make it something that it's not.
I would agree with that. I do think that there is. It's well here. I'll use a visual aid. We
I
we
need
got
a
a rubber
critical
band,
mass
right?
of
I
system
think you can
appropriateness.
stretch the rubber band, but at some point it's going to break.
Matt
And
brought props.
I know. Well, I just have rubber bands everywhere. I don't know
I don't
why.
even want to fathom what props look like in Award and Lamentations of the Flame.
You don't. Anyway, this is not X rated. So but no, I think there is some malleability, and I think that and just to kind of bring it back to what Mike said when he was talking to me about this a little bit. One of the things he really liked about the classic D&D system is that it does feel like it could do a lot, just based on the chassis, right? And again, I look at Lamentations as a great example of that, or Lion and Dragon for like someone who wants something quote medieval authentic,
But Matt, if system didn't matter, right? If system didn't matter, then why didn't you just play Elemental Evil with Dungeons and Dragons instead of making it Lamentations of the
Temple of Elemental Lamentations?
Like the Temple of Eternal Lamentations of the Flame Princess. I'm just saying, like, why, if system doesn't matter, why not use the system?
Because I wanted a different experience.
And
I think we might be talking when I talk about. Well, all right, fair enough.
No, I mean that's what it is. You want a different experience, and different games give us different experiences. Different mechanics give us different experiences, and they accentuate or negate certain things, right? So it's when you're playing BX or OSC, my favorite game, resources matter. Encumbrance,
Oh
travel
yeah.
speed matters. These things fucking matter, right? If you're playing a horror investigation game, it
No,
does.
they do.
They don't
They
really.
do when you got to run away
But,
from the
I mean,
thing.
kind of.
Which I
Well, maybe. Okay, but what I'm saying is that overall, like that whole, it's not the same. It's not.
well, I
It's not the
but what
same.
about
You know what I
but
mean?
what
It's
about
designed to.
uh Forbidden Lands? That's the Free League's answer to the OSR. It's a hex crawl, and it's got a very different. It's got a more role play, sort of role playing. I don't want to say theater kid because it's not that bad, but it's got that kind of emphasis. A lot of their games do. This is just the most crunchy procedural game that they put out because I think they're trying to like appeal to OSR players. The whole experience point system is based about, did you engage with your dark secret? Did you help a friend?
So gamey.
Did you show up?
So gamey.
Just want to fucking.
It's not about the treasure you get in the dungeon.
I think you really hit on something though that it really struck true to me, and it's once you've been running games for some time, and whether it's a rotating cast of players or it's the same table for years, it feels disingenuous. That lack of authenticity if you don't have those rules to be able to draw from. It gives you credibility. For new game masters, it's even more important because it gives them confidence. But as you've been running games for a while, and when I say you, I mean us. And I, by the way, just to extend it publicly, I apologized last week. I do the pointy thing, and I was saying to anybody who saw anything from last week, that was not intended towards Gary. That's me thinking aloud, speaking game master.
You're good.
The,
I point a different finger at him.
And
I do the middle one.
But the point being is that when you feel a lack of authenticity and you feel disingenuous again to what you're trying to convey, using the system of either your choice or what your players brought to you, your players can read it. It creates this problem at the table that sometimes you want to resolve. Sometimes we resolve in the moment with a ruling. Sometimes we come to a consensus, Gary, like what you were saying, like, all right. Or maybe, no, it's actually, I think you meant like, let's talk about this. And you get some buy-in. And then, oh, wow, we got to this together and this will be our agreed upon. Ultimately, perhaps one also the hidden thread in this is whenever you look at the trust at the table, it has a maybe not proportionate, but definitely an inverse. If you have a lot of trust between the players and the GMs, you will find that sometimes system doesn't matter as much because you're achieving what everybody is at the table looking to achieve, depending on the players. And here's where I want to go ahead and go back to I think it was Barbarian that said systems matter less to players, especially for the modern player who can't bother to learn which dice to use. Now that sounds like a dismissive comment at first, but it's not a dismissive comment actually. My wife, the filthy casual, I put in there and such like that. Her most, if we have her and the ladies at the table, I'm going to tell you what, they couldn't give two shits half the time what the system is. They're there for the role-playing experiences of choices, seeing how things get resolved, and bouncing off of one another. So trust is important there. And so
then I would say to that they would have a better game experience were they to play something with a robust social mechanic. If they're not look, dude, there's playing games and there's whoa, there's playing games and there's playing, right? Playing, we can play. That doesn't require any fucking rules. It doesn't require it doesn't require any kind of structure. You just get together and you play, right? But if you're playing if you're playing a game,
yes,
right? a game is defined by its
Absolutely,
rules. That is
absolutely.
what it is. So
Remember the crux of
yeah, it's
the crux.
I mean, how much like do you want to play poker with people who don't care? Like it's just one of those things where I can't figure out how you can have somebody at your table that doesn't give two fucks. Like most people that play want at least a base knowledge of how this shit works, right? There is a bit of gaminess to it. And then the people that are just above filthy casual sit around and do ultimate builds for their 5e character. You know, there I don't know that I want to play with people that have absolutely no
In the
interest
game
in the game
mechanics,
we're
the system.
playing. Would you want to play checkers with somebody
Right.
that doesn't give a fuck and
Well,
just
I
is
don't know if
like,
that's well.
I'm gonna move this wherever,
I
I'm
don't
gonna
think
move
that's a
that
fair
wherever.
comparison. Because you're not playing checkers to get immersed. Okay, I don't play Monopoly, but when I did, I wasn't like, man, I can't wait to be
Or
the
immersion.
banker. Whew, no, there is this immersive quality, and I think there's nothing wrong. I mean, to have the player to I have the players kind of rely on the game master to tell them, okay, now it's time to. I mean, it's annoying. I'd like them to know how to play and be a little bit more engaged in the mechanics, but I think it's more of a problem when you have players too wrapped up in the mechanics, because then you have stuff devolving into
Yet another reason why system
not necessarily.
matters. Because a game like Shadow Dark is designed to keep players from doing those mega builds and getting too caught up in that shit away from the table. Whereas a game like 5e is totally designed to have somebody sit at home and make builds and metagame
hold up
that shit
though.
out,
Like
right?
I want to be clear. Whenever I have an opinion on this stuff, I'm coming from the perspective of the people who we are gaming with. Like 95% of the time are going to be people we know, that we're friends with, and that we are routinely coming to the table with. So like I always take that into consideration when I sit down and I start thinking about the baptism, what I'm going to make, because that's I don't want to use the term audience like I'm like an entertainer, but they're my audience.
Right.
Those are my friends. We're about to spend 3 to 4 hours together or longer. What are they looking for? It's not just me. It's not just some pie in the sky. Well, if they were real gamers, they'd like this. God damn it! You know what I mean? Like,
Well, okay, but what I'm trying to say is that
I
you're
know.
playing a game, right? And they need to care.
You think they're going to
They,
get
I think they care enough because
they
they're
just do.
there, and they are going to like make sure that they. But
Because I will tell you this: when you try something new with people, they either like it or they don't.
yeah,
It either
and if it
works or
doesn't,
it
if they don't
doesn't.
like it,
You
then we
know,
move on and we play something else. But when
because systems matter.
I sort of feel like the systems matter is too broad, because like I'm thinking about in terms of like, what kind of experience, like what kind of decisions you're making when it comes to setting up a game. But maybe it should be that broad, because I did just bring in player buy-in as part of a
so proud
consideration.
of you that you did that, by the way.
I just want to point out, by the way, Brian, the reason why I think this way now, it's because of you. I just want to point that out.
I was like, oh.
Which is funny, because the reason I think the way I do is because of you, Matt.
Oh my God.
Gary, the reason why I think the way I do about different game systems is because of you. Hold on. We're doing the
oh my goodness.
The fuck.
By gum.
Yep. Well, so look, I think when you decide to run a game, you're deciding what kind of experiences you want to share with players, right? And I think that, look, if you want to play Fate, and screw around or whatever, have fun. There's nothing wrong with that. And that game, I think, is loose for a reason. I think one of my favorite games over the past few years has been ICRPG, and that's a very DIY,
probably
get your groove on kind of
that's
game.
probably, you're right. That's probably like a premier example of that, right? And And
Well, I don't know so much about rule of cool or ignoring rules or anything, but that's a game that's designed to be house ruled and manipulated and turned into whatever it is you want without really being generic. It's kind of that's what I think the difference is with Wretched and say with ICRPG is that these are systems that are malleable. You can have them do a lot of different things, and at no point do they ever feel generic.
That's interesting. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I think yeah, I think I just Wretched definitely has a flavor, yet it's without
Yeah.
genre.
and this is we're
Right.
landing the plane on really all this to the point of discovery to where it isn't the broad question of do systems matter or does the system matter. What matters most is does your system matter? Whatever you've chosen, whether it's piecemeal, whether it's gospel, whether it's something your players brought to you and you were reluctant to play, but you went ahead and did it because you had 5 people that you knew would show up for doing it, or whether it's because your players saying, you know what, we normally wouldn't want to play this, but we know you care about it and you're going to give it everything, so we'll play it. Does your system matter? Whatever you've come to, whatever the conclusion, if you can answer that with a definitive yes, you're going to have a successful game. You will. You will.
Well, that would mean all my games are successful because all my systems, everything I put together matters. I baptized this thing. This is my campaign.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the reason I'm so adamant right now is just kind of, like we were talking about before, the situation I find myself in, where as soon as I say I want to do West Marches, I want to do OSC, we get hit with the Shadow Dark,
Yeah.
Kickstarter. And I'm not trying to talk shit. I mean, I'm getting physical fucking products delivered to my house.
I'm with
it's kind
you.
of
Like
a big deal.
Look, I like Shadow Dark too, and I've had some recent fun with my Shadow Dark on the Borderlands campaign, and I will keep playing it whenever my buddies and their kids want to get together. I just think it's a fun game. My concern with Shadow Dark is I don't know how much long-term play. I mean, it's the complete opposite of Adventure Conquer King system, right? It's no rule cyclopedia. There's got to be some work to put into it. And that being said, there is a lot of third-party products out there that can assist with that. So what I want to see is what she does with it, because and I know once that gets published, right before she releases the physical copy, she'll do exactly what she did with Solo Dark, and she'll issue her own Braunstein rules.
So I want to just jump into this because you're right there, right? So what you have is trust. You have trust in the game, sure, to a degree. You have trust in the creator, somebody who's going to put in the time, right? But here's why I went with Shadow Dark, why it is, pretty much always going to be my fallback forever. The system, it isn't incredibly complex. It's actually kind of intuitive once you kind of got a few reps with it. It's the sort of game where the system does matter, and it will matter more because it's not just me making rulings. It's not me just making homebrew stuff that I want to bring in. If I have experienced players who have played tabletop role-playing games of other systems, especially the very hard to get 5e masses to play something that seems simplistic, which Shadow Dark has that perception. If I want to pull in people that have all these ideas that they want and have never super chat Law Dog.
But no, I'll get it. I just wanted to.
Okay, sorry. No, anybody's paying money. Let's go.
Oh, okay, fair enough. All right, super chat from Law Dog. He's just, I don't know, man. He's just dropping all kinds of money. Thank you, man. Really appreciate it. Okay, first chat is, I tend to think the amount that system matters is directly proportional to the amount of heavy lifting a GM has to do. For example, a video game is system heavy and GM light, and therefore system is supreme as long as you have a semi-engaging storyline. For TTRPGs, you can judge.
Interesting statement. Yeah.
how important system is by looking at how crucial the GM is to enjoyment of the game. Some players might not particularly like a system, but a good GM can make the game very fun, whereas some players really enjoy a game even if the GM is just okay because the system itself is so strong. I think those are all some really great points. Law Dog, dude, that's really generous. We really appreciate it. And I think that's kind of where I'm landing on this. Again, going back to the rubber band, like I think if you want like the pure Lamentations experience, run it rules as written. If you want to have something that's going to have, I guess, you want that fear and you like that niche protection that Lamentations has, but you want to give the players a little boost for survivability, import some things to help them do that. You're totally in your prerogative to do that as a game master. And that's that rubber band kind of stretching it. Now, if you start throwing +5 weapons at them and all this other stuff, you're going to break it. And you're no longer playing Lamentations. You're playing something like classic D&D. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm landing too. And I think like my players really liked Forbidden Lands. They wanted to play more of it, but we hated the setting and I was not feeling it, and they could feel that I wasn't feeling it. And that's why we're tabling that. I'm going to work on something specific for that, and we're going to play Gods of the Forbidden North in the meantime.
So I was on the flip side of that because for me, Shadow Dark, and where I was kind of going, and Law Dog, again, great insights. But I was on the flip side of that with Shadow Dark because now I have something where I can work with my players on design or rules. And we have kind of like this shared common language that we can get more draconic with. If they have something that they want to bring that they've seen in some other gamer system, I'm absolutely comfortable with us, not me homebrewing, not me creating rules and rulings, but having a game where my players can bring their creativity, not to their character, not to the story, not to the plot or all these things, but actually to the rules. And I find that very fascinating. And I think Shadow Dark, being so elegantly brief and simple, I get to have that chance to have those mechanical dialogues in a way that is easily implementable regardless of the experience of the player. But some of my experienced players could probably come with some very fascinating things.
Before Gary is unleashed, he's like a charging bull ready to charge or whatever. I'm actually doing the exact same thing with Gods of the Forbidden North. Actually, I said in one of the emails, I'm like, look, I want to use these. I'm going to allow these second edition splat books. But if you guys have the Mystara books and there's something in there that you want to use, or if you find something from some book elsewhere that you want to use, bring it to me. We'll talk about it. I just want to have, because it's going to be like this hex crawl, and players are going to die, or not players, excuse me. I don't kill my players. I kill their characters. Characters are going to die, and I want them to keep their interest up, So if they want to play something different or whatever, if it can work, we'll make it work. And, I might drop a Lamentations module on the map. I just might. So, but anyway, Gary,
where are you at? Yeah. Where are you at?
Let me guess. Systems matter?
Brian. Kumbaya.
Elaborate.
You're so nice. You're so nice to your players. So I want to, I feel like I would have agreed with that sentiment about a year ago, right? I would have been a little bit more open to that. But there have been a couple games that I have ran or tried to run or get going. You know what I mean? Where I gave the players quite a bit of input. And I think the problem with that is that before you bring a game to your players, you've already got a pretty good idea of what you want to do. Right? Like Matt's doing this Saturday morning cartoon thing, and he hasn't asked anybody in particular who's going to play. He's getting everything ready. This is the game that he's playing, I was going somewhere with that. God damn it.
No, it's all right.
It's late.
The game master has, but
Are you talking about disengagement? Or were you
I
kind
also
of going
think,
with there? That's what it sounded like. You were running a past game and making the
well,
players.
we need to. Well, you're talking about giving the players some sort of agency
Uh,
over the rules.
yeah, bringing ideas
And
and finding.
what I'm telling you is that one, you can get railroaded,
I
right?
don't ever get railroaded here.
And two, oh, uh, it's
Yeah.
I'm so nice, bro. That's the problem. People look at me and they say that guy's too nice. Um, yeah, but there's also, it's not just that. It's that it's not that I would never give my players any say over the world or
What's the
world building
risk?
or something like that. The risk is I want to do a human centric campaign in, fantasy
I'm
land.
feeling the same right now.
And I've really worked out this whole kind of thing, right? I've really worked out this whole kind of thing. And one player's like, oh, but I really want to play an elf. And like, well, fuck it. You know what? Go ahead. We can have an elf in the party. Oh, cool. So I can be a halfling? Well, fuck. Yeah, you can be. And the next thing
You're
you
speaking
know,
my pain right
it's
now.
Well,
just,
that's why no
yeah.
is the most important word in a game
And,
master's. It's not
well,
yes,
and
it's no.
right. But the other thing that I'll say about that is the reason I brought up that example with the game that you're doing right now is because you're being like, hey, this is the game we're playing.
But can I
You know what I mean? There's
well,
not.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that
go
game
ahead.
we're going to play is going to be a play test of this, and after it's probably going to start off as a one shot, right, and then maybe do something a little bit more campaign oriented to just sort of see how things go. But after that first one shot, I actually have a 1-page sheet of, hey, can you answer these questions for me and tell me where I went wrong? With like gate character design, how this was designed, because it's a
Yeah.
play test, and I'm going to be pretty formal with it because what started off as sort of like a lark. I think I'll just do some weird face rip thing. As now I'm actually taking it seriously because I kind of like,
Right.
yeah,
Because that's
well,
just who
can't
you
help it.
are. That's just
I actually wanted to make it into a box set, dude, instead of a book. But I know, but I might be stuck with like 100 or 1,000 boxes of in my basement if no one buys them. So I got to think about it. But I was thinking about box set,
Ah,
fold out paper battle mats with like little cardboard minis and things like that. I thought it'd be cool. But anyway,
this is what we're talking about as soon as
okay,
it shows up.
For another hour and a half, almost like last week.
yeah.
I'm gonna make another drink,
But yeah,
for sure.
so I'm not, but that's again, I'm trying to get input to improve the game, and I don't think that just for those game masters who are not designing something but just are trying to run a campaign, I don't think there's a problem with doing that every now and again, especially if you start getting a feeling like I did after a year of my Temple of Elemental Evil game. I had these classic OSR guys being like, man, we just keep dying, and sometimes it was not because they were dumb, it was just the dice rolls, right? And I'm like, well, how about this? How about we do this? It's not like, you're still stuck with rolling at whatever it is at first level and this, that, and the other thing, but it does give you a little bit of a buffer. I felt it was balanced. I felt it didn't break the game at all. Again, it was reasonable. It was in that stretchiness of the rubber band. So,
And I think that's fine. I think that's fine. I think what I'm really trying to get to is that there are Matt. You've been doing this forever. Brian, you've been doing this forever. Most of the people who are still with us have been doing this forever. You know what I mean? You would trust them to make appropriate changes where they need to be made, or make appropriate rulings in the moment that those rulings need to be made, right? I don't I think that people are coming into role playing games and they're watching YouTube and they're seeing a bunch of people say, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." You know what I mean? I think there's arguments on Twitter right now, X, about how AD&D is supposed to be played and what the rules are and what's official and everything else.
you say their name 3 times, they appear.
I'm not saying
It just feels like we're arguing Beatles, Rolling Stones.
You'd be surprised, like when I listen to everybody's take, other than the snarkiness and just the bullshit internet attitude stuff, um, I'm kind of on the side that's like, look, man, it's written down.
He knows. He knows.
Shh, shh. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's written down, it's a fucking rule. You know, that's just the way it is. And I think it's this fight. I think it's reaction against you know, the sort of the look, things got real wobbly a few
Right.
years back. You go look at some old videos of even guys who I like on the internet, and they're kind of giving you full on permission to, does it seem cool? Let it
Yeah,
happen.
no, I hear you.
No.
Well,
You know what I mean?
and I hate to bring this up because it's been discussed ad nauseum, but I think that's the Mercer effect. I really think that's Critical Role. People saw this thing and they're like, "Oh, we can do that too," you know, and we're going to recreate that at our tables. And people need to recognize, and I don't think anybody who's watching this feels this way. So this is not directed at any of our viewers. It's not directed to you two because I know you don't think this way, but Critical Role are professional actors playing the part of gamers playing D&D. That's what Critical Role is. It is not an actual play. It is not what I do is an actual play, and you know what? It's boring to listen to. Okay, I'll probably be fading them out after Lamentations is done. But you're right. That really, and that's part of the influx into the hobby is because everyone wanted to do that, coupled with COVID, and what we're dealing with is the aftermath, and like all these game masters who probably fell in love with the hobby, right? But they had gotten all this terrible advice. And this is why I say things like those fucking talking heads on YouTube. You know, that's why I say that, because they're and it's even those who are trying to push back against the tide, I think are almost as bad because I just don't think they get precisely what it is a game master is doing. And so they start pounding the
But they're doing a different thing, man. Like, they got a whole other, you know, they're on a whole other trip. You know, you got Critical Role, which is like whatever, you know, the
yeah,
rules, you know, and then you've got the other side of it, which is like fucking
yeah.
rules, motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm kind of glad both sides are out there. There's somewhere, you know,
I
in
agree with
between.
that.
But I do lean more towards the rules guys right now because I think that we're losing the game part of the game. You know, the actual game part of it, I think has taken a
I
back
agree with
seat
you on
to,
that. I would agree with you on that. In
you
fact,
know,
Gold for XP is a great example of this because I just had this conversation with one of my in-person gaming crew who is currently running a Vampire the Masquerade game. I don't play in it because it's not my thing. But he's just like, yeah, I'll play. But I think Gold for XP is stupid. I'm like, well, don't you need motivation to go into this? You know, and I started giving him the arguments, and he's just like, yeah. Hand just completely didn't get it. It's just like, yeah, but this is the game part of it. You know, do you want me to just arbitrarily give you AC experience points? Like, I know Gold for XP is like this odd thing, but it's objective, you know, and that's part of the game. Like,
yep.
getting the hotel on freaking boardwalk or whatever, you know. So I do agree with you. There is that issue, but I don't think anybody who's watching this right now, who are part of this conversation, would seriously think that if we have this sliding scale, which I like to think of because I've had fun with story
Yeah.
games,
Yeah.
they're not thinking just to do away with all rules. You know, when I think of whether system matters and bringing
Yeah.
up that question, that was about trying to resolve that tension that you just beautifully
Right.
explained. And I'm resolving on the rubber band. I think you can manipulate systems, but it be helpful to have a system that's kind of close enough to what you're looking.
Made to
Yeah.
be
So
manipulated. Yep. Put up old Rex's question real quick because I can't read it in small print right now. Gary, do you feel like in the 90s you had to support the other side of the argument the way I did? But if you you have since had to switch sides you advocate for? I guess, yeah, but I was still playing like D6 Star Wars and Marvel in the 90s, like at least into the early 90s for sure. No, I think the conversion, this conversion to me being the rules guy comes from a few things. One of them is all of my games have always had some kind of story to them. Even if they're like open sandbox, whatever, they've always had some kind of overarching timeline or, some shit's going to happen. Right. And I just found that as I got more and more into the story parts of the game, I was having I was having more and more experiences that were not satisfactory. Like I came away from not the majority of sessions, but I would come away from those games being like, oh man, and it was about decisions because so many of the things you do in like a story game are arbitrary. I'm deciding what this character is going to do or that, what have you. And so I think it just kind of pushed me more towards really, I was going to come up again. Fantasy Flight Star Wars is a story game that had these really strict mechanics for how it all worked. And I was like, oh shit, mechanics mean something. And it was like something clicked back on. And that's really what, yeah. I didn't feel like I'm not fighting for one side or the other. I just think that after a lot of experience, it's better to have some pretty strict rules that everybody knows and follows. I also have 3 kids, man. I don't like any. I don't want anybody to question what the rules are. Everybody knows the fucking rules around here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. I'm just, I'm not dealing with it. So, yeah. But there are some systems that are malleable. I guess I agree with you, Matt. You can modify things. I think that stuff needs to be done before the game gets to the table, right? Like if you want to play, if I want to play like this high flying adventure story using OSE, I'm probably going to throw in fucking like luck dice, or I'm going to let everybody roll their characters with 4d6, and these are things they're going to know before the game starts.
Yeah.
And that's the system.
No, I've when I was on a rules is written homebrew house rule panel on Legion of Myth, I broke it down into 3. Homebrew is for the game master. That's the game master having some fun, creating a world, creating a situation, creating whatever, and special mechanics just for that. And that is something that should be done before the game begins. As I said earlier, the house rules are for like when problems arise at the table and you need to sort of step in and solve those problems. But rules is written at the end of the day. That's really about the author's intent, right? And trying to understand what the author's trying to do and the designer's trying to do. And I think you do need to do that before you start tinkering with anything. So I want to be clear here too. I'm not telling everybody, hey, do whatever you want. You're a game master. No, to be a game master, you got to understand that game. And that's why Lamentations of Elemental Evil, it took a year before I finally was like, you know what, this is a problem. And people are having some issues. Let's solve it this way. So but
but once again, I will say that it's we've got one more. At most, you're not going to find a system that has an answer to everything. It's why rulings are important. You can dismantle a barn and make bridge across river. Sure, absolutely. But if you have a game that's based in a certain kind, like if you have a game that's based in starship combat, well, fuck, you got to get starship combat right. It's got to feel like right. It's got to feel like starship combat. It's got to feel like the shit you're trying to do. If you're trying to do superheroes, it's got to feel like superheroes, and not every system is going to feel like fucking superheroes. So anyway,
yeah,
I think that's
mine too. System matters to a point. It matters for what you're trying to go for. And I just don't think every system, and I do think not every system can do everything, excluding the ones that are supposed to be generic. But like we said before, they're not. I don't know. I just don't think they're interesting as a game master because I want to have fun tinkering with something. But I don't know.
I mean,
Brian,
yeah.
bring us home.
Yeah, well, I mean, just a few things. I mean, I think what we got out tonight was understanding that there's never going to be a final answer to this question. It's always going to be emergent, which is kind of the nature of this hobby. It's emergent. We're learning and discovering. And that discover word I use, Gary, you mentioned earlier, we talked about like how the pandemic brought a lot of players in. That was loneliness, right? We wanted to socialize and connect. And so this hobby saw an uptick. Then we talk about the critical role Mercer effect, which every time I hear that it just chafes me because I think it's reductive. But it is important to acknowledge because it's gaming as entertainment. And that brought in a certain audience and such. And I think it's probably one of the things, and it was a statement I think that Kelsey made into why Shadow Dark is designed as a system the way it was, so that it wasn't combat centric. It was discovery. It was about discovery and bringing that back to gaming, bringing that sense of wonder and awe, fear and mystery back to the game. So system does matter, provided that we find the right one. Well, therein lies the rub, because you'll never find the right one. It will always be a search to find the things that we enjoy from the games that are in this hobby, in this pastime, even as it were, and finding ways to bring it in and do the things that we want to do. And player agency and choices, as much as we say how much they matter in OSR and the rules and having all that in, I would contend that they matter every bit as much in the full definition tabletop role-playing game rules. Player agency and choices should matter every bit as much, perhaps in the construction of agreed upon rules. That was what I was mentioning earlier, and integrating that. And then the role playing piece. And Gary, you also said something, it just speaks to my heart right now with this Northern Reaches thing that I'm doing that is Shadow Dark rules, but it's in Mystara. And it's like, Shadow Dark has goblins. Do I really want to run a goblin character in the Northern Reaches that I want it to be human centric? This will always be the conundrum if we just go ahead and err on the side of, you know what, we're going to get in, we're going to learn it together, we're going to have fun. Participatory. It cannot be a solitary effort. So rules, system or systems, don't be the sole arbiter of it. Be the facilitator. The facilitator is really the ultimate role we serve. So that's all I got.
All right. Well, Gary, I gave him the last word, so you have to bite your tongue.
I know you did. I
Hey, I want to thank everybody.
know, bro. I know. I hugged it. I understand. You get the last word. I'm not rebutting you. I'm not rebutting you.
This will go on for another hour, folks. I want to say thank you to the chat. You guys were awesome tonight. We had a lot of, and I'm not just even talking about like all the super chats and stuff. I mean, you guys were having a great
chat ever. Best super chats tonight.
A lot of great conversations and comments. We really appreciate it. That's what we're trying to do here. Please hit like, subscribe, bell icon, tell your friends about us. I know it's a Friday night. We're the late show. But that's what we wanted to do.
Invites to 5 people in 5 different states tonight. Just be like that I've never sent before, and I'm like, hey, come in tonight. Come on.
So, but we did see some of that. Cerulean Rex, thanks so much for joining us, man, in particular. So, but anyway,
for real,
that's it. Our watch has ended. Y'all have a great weekend and a great week, and we'll see you next week. Oh, next week we will be talking to DM Blackwall. I'm sure he'll talk a little bit about Horde Wars. By a little, I mean a lot. And then the week after that, we're going to do a chill stream where we want to hear from you, and what you want to do. But we'll talk more about that later. It's late. Oh, what?
What it really is that Matt's going to be able to drink again when
the good Lord will have risen.
That he doesn't want to think too fucking hard about.
I might have to have whiskey that night. I haven't had whiskey in like a year.
Yes, the good Lord will have risen, and I will have be able to imbibe in some libations and engage. And
Jesus wants you to have that drink. He wants you to have
no,
that
no,
candy. He wants you to
be
be
gone, devil.
happy.
All right, everyone, have a great week. Oh man.
Dude, get up. I think I heard